So in this video, we'll go over why being vulnerable can actually help you become a powerful leader that can easily grow your business. So what we'll cover is what vulnerability really is, why you're afraid of vulnerability, the Outsmart method to use vulnerability to help you grow as a leader, and how to grow your business as that leader. So make sure you take your notes and takeaways in the comments, so that helps bring clarity to both you and all the others watching the video. So first, to understand vulnerability, what we have to do is we have to understand that we're made of multiple parts or resource states, right? So you have the family part, you have how you act when you're with your family, you have how you are and act when you're with your business, you have how you are or act with your boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, right? Your friends. When you're doing a hobby, you have specific thoughts and skills that you use during that time. You have the childhood part. That's the one that looks back at old movies and shows and it's like you get that feeling, that childlike wonder. That's the childhood part. So you have all these different types of parts. And what they are, they're actually physically represented in the brain as neural pathways, right? So you have this poorly drawn brain with a little brain stem, and then you have all these axon and dendrite growths that connect these neural pathways. So there could be the family part represented by this bundle here. There could be the business part represented by this bundle here, right? So it's all physically represented in the brain. And how are these developed? Well, they're developed by using continued behaviors or coping mechanisms. That's how these are created, right? So for example, as you spend more and more time with your family growing up, you start saying, oh, okay, I get this. When this happens to me, I do this behavior and I get praise for it, right? Or so when I'm doing a hobby, and let's say your hobby is building Legos, right? You like to build Legos. So you start seeing, okay, in the beginning, building Legos was hard, right? And then all of a sudden it starts getting easier as you start doing it more and more. What you're actually doing is building out those neural pathways. That's why it's becoming easier. And so you're building this part or resource that's really good at building the Legos. So that's how they're made, right? And then that also helps with different thoughts, behaviors. It's like all of that wrapped up into these different parts. So yeah, these are physically created through dendrite and axon growth through neuroplasticity, right? So neuroplasticity is what we talk about when we say, oh, things get easier and easier as you do it more and more. It's because you're building those neural pathways. That's the neuroplasticity. So these resource states can be wounded, right? You could be wounded with fear, rejection, disappointment, confusion. So you can have a childhood part that was wounded. So the childhood part, something happened to that childhood part that now makes this childhood part feel sad or fearful. This is supposed to be tears. It just looks like a nose. But sad, fearful, disappointed, confused, right? That wounded that part, which is represented by those neural pathways. So these wounded parts are what make you vulnerable. And these parts can be triggered and become conscious, right? So there's only one part at a time can take the conscious mind. So let me just do that over here, right? So you have the wheel of your conscious mind, right? So this wheel can only be driven by one person at a time. So one conscious part, one of these bundles of neurons, right? So when you're triggered, what ends up happening is this part gets thrown off the wheel by that wounded part. So this is the sad part with the tear that looks like a nose, or it looks like nothing right now. But So this is the sad part. So something happened, there was a trigger. And this trigger caused this sad part to take your wheel. And then you feel sad. So a vulnerability is really a wounded resource that is conscious, that took the wheel. So the wounded resources are often trying to protect you from their wound by making you not try, give up, procrastinate, tell you you're not good enough, tell you it's not worth the effort, having a false belief. These are all different ways that this wounded part is trying to protect you. Let's see. So, all resource states are there for a reason, to help in some way, but their wounds make them seem not very helpful at all, right? Because it makes you feel things or do behaviors that you don't want to be doing. That means another part of you, or all the other parts of you, may not want what is happening right now with that wounded part taking the wheel. So this is why you're afraid of vulnerability. So a second resource, a protector resource, right, can also become conscious and take the wheel of your mind to protect the first wounded, vulnerable resource. So that protector can go out of its way to keep the wound from becoming conscious and driving your mind with that wheel. So it's that protector that is the one that is actually afraid of what will happen if that vulnerable, wounded part becomes conscious. And so let me show you over here. So you have your wheel. Then you have part number one. So this. Let's say this is your business part. It's driving a wheel. Things are fine. And then a trigger happens. Something that can cause some kind of, it can cause a part. I'm trying to explain it better. So this trigger causes another part to start becoming conscious, the sad part, right? Maybe it's the sad childhood part. So he starts taking a wheel. But then, this is what happens when there's a protector part. The protector kicks sad part out and goes, no, I'll take the wheel. And that protector part can make you do behaviors or other things that you may not like, right? It may make you smoke so that the other part doesn't show up, or make you drink, or make you just unnecessarily angry, right? It may make you throw a fit. It may make you shut down. Right? So these are all different ways that this protected part is trying to prevent the sad part from taking the wheel and becoming conscious. So, as I stated, the protected part can show anger to prevent the vulnerability, take up a behavior like smoking or gambling to prevent the vulnerability, or shut down so that the vulnerable part can't become conscious. So the protector can be just as damaging as the vulnerability. Now, so when we say afraid of vulnerability, what we actually mean is the protected part is preventing a wounded part from becoming conscious. So, to stop being afraid of vulnerability, we have to heal the wounded part so the protector's role can change. And in doing so, the behavior can change to a positive behavior. For example, let's say we have, this is the protector part, and he is, let's say, he smokes. Let's do smoking. Right? So he takes the wheel and he smokes to protect the sad child part. But if we heal this sad child part and make that sad child part joy, then smokes won't have to take the wheel anymore, because now sad is joy. Right? And smokes can change its job to something else. Maybe now smokes is a more positive behavior, like let's say he is now resilience or strength. So that his behaviors change. It's no longer smoking. So, why should you stop being afraid of vulnerability? Let me move this back up. That's because of the core story engine. So what is a core story engine? So, core story engine basically is my way of trying to explain that any internal story conflicts that you have are mirrored in your external business systems. And so we can use the story conflict matrix here to diagnose which story conflict is causing chaos in the external world, right? The internal conflicts, external is mirrored. So you have self versus self. So that's two parts that are fighting each other. Self versus task. So you have a part that is like against the task. It may not even be the right part for that task, which is why it's doing anything it can to make you not do that task. Then there's self versus business. So all the collections of the parts that make up your identity may no longer align their goals with your business goals. Then you have business versus task. So this is the external side. So all three of these are internal. This is the only one that's external. And that is basically saying your business doesn't have the people or the process in place for the task needed to make that business grow. So now that we understand the story conflict matrix and why it's important for you to heal vulnerabilities and use them, let's talk about the Outsmart method that we use to help the vulnerabilities and make yourself grow as a leader. So what is outsmarting your vulnerability? So it's healing that wounded part, changing its way of supporting you, or changing its job so a better fit part supports you. Making a protector change its behavior, like we mentioned before. So how do we outsmart your vulnerability and wounded parts? First step, to close your eyes, right? Close your eyes. You name that part of you that was triggered, that wounded part. You ask that part to show you all the times it felt that wound, right? Just show me all the times that you've felt this sadness or whatever it was that the wound is. Go through those times until you reach the first time. And you'll see that if it's an image, once you find it, make it a video. Make it more lively. If it's black and white, make it color and vivid, right? Then you're going to jump into that scenario, into that first time, right? It's like, I don't know if you've seen Blue's Clues, but it's like, Blue's Skidoo, weekend too, and you jump into the frame, or like Super Mario when you're running through the level and you jump into the painting. Yeah, that's basically what we're doing in here, but in our mind. Then what you do is you have that wounded part talk to and express its feelings towards that person or thing that wounded that part, that initial first time. So let's say you have the childhood part and its wound is it's afraid to express itself, right? So there could have been a time in the past where you, as a child, were trying to show off something, trying to show off some trick you learned or whatever it is, and your parents were like, that's dangerous, don't do that. They shut you down, right? So then your childhood part's like, oh, I shouldn't express myself, I should stay safe. So that becomes the wound. So what you want to do is allow that wounded part, that childhood part, to express, emotionally discharge by expressing to those parents, your parents, what you feel about that. Like, I feel really bad that you made me shut myself down. I really want to express myself, and just let all of that out. Let all of it out. Then what you do is, once you do that, you change that scene to make it go in a better direction. So you ask the part, let's change the scene. Let's make it so that your parents watch you doing that move or whatever it was, that skill, that magic trick, whatever it was, and they support you and they thank you and they're like, oh wow, this was great, blah blah blah. You change the scene, right? Then what you do is you highlight your new scene to know it changed. So in that video, you imagine a border. It could be any color border, but just so you know that that's a scene that was changed. Then you ask that wounded part if it would like to change its name to something more positive now that the scene is different, right? Because now it was sad, blah, blah, blah. Now it's changed the scene. It expressed itself. Now it's expression. So that childhood part now is expression. Then you describe how you like to feel whenever that trigger moment happened. So maybe that trigger moment was you having to go on stage, or you having to present, or it was you trying to bring up a new idea for your business and you're afraid that people are going to shut it down. How would you like to feel instead? Maybe it's like, I like to feel confident. I like to feel strong in my viewpoint while still remaining flexible. And it's like, okay, so that part that's naming that, what's the name of that part? And so that maybe they go, oh, I don't know, maybe my part's maybe my name is let's see. We said that it was confidence, strength and opinion. So we'll just call it confidence, right? Confidence. So that part, confidence, I know it's a little bit cut off here, but so you name that part. So it's confidence. Then you ask that part if it will handle those situations from now on so that the formerly wounded part, the one that was sad that became expression, can stay in their new scene and enjoy themselves, right? Because normally we like to allow childhood parts, or parts that were from childhood that were wounded that we healed, allow them to just enjoy themselves. Have adult parts that are ready to take over that role, be the ones that take that role. So then you have confidence. Basically you have confidence. Tell that part, like, okay, you can stay here, enjoy yourself. I'm going to take care of all the adult stuff, right? Then you thank all the parts and breathe in that new strong part. And then what you want to do also is test, right? So imagine yourself in that situation again where you got to present and you were originally afraid. Now you're like, oh, I have the confidence part with me. How do I feel now? And then just imagine that and you'll be able to see how you feel. You'll be like, oh, I feel more confident. I feel like I can actually express myself. I feel like I can talk. So in order to explain, it's a great process, but you have to go step by step. So I call it Outsmart. So O is open your inner world, and you do that by closing your eyes. You understand who's hurting, so you name that part. T, you travel back to the first time they got hurt. S, you step into that memory. M, you make your feelings heard, or you make that part's feelings heard. A, you adjust the story, so you change how the situation happened. R, you replace the old feeling with a new resource or part. All right, so we got confidence in that situation. Then T, you take in that new you. You breathe it in and you test. So it is possible that during this process, the protective part will try to prevent you from working with the vulnerable part, right? take the wheel. It doesn't like that vulnerable part coming to the conscious, so it might try to prevent you. Well, you have to name that part. Then, once you name that part, you let it know that by allowing you to work with your vulnerable part, it is helping all your parts, and its reputation will be better among all those parts. And its job will be easier and better afterwards. You want to reassure this part that it's going to be liked. It's because every part wants to be liked, right? So it's going to be liked among other parts. It's going to be more helpful. It's going to be more efficient. And it's going to get a role, maybe a better role than what it has now. So these are all win-wins, right? We're trying to make it a win-win for that part. So once you use the Outsmart method for the vulnerable part, speak to the protector again and ask if it can take on a new role or a new job or behavior, like a more positive one. So like the example we said before, we had the smoking part, and then we changed, after we healed the wounded part, we asked the smoky part, what's another way it can help? And instead it goes, oh, I think I can be like resilience. So if my idea doesn't work the first time, I'll be resilient and find another way to do it, find another way to try it. So the behavior changes. And then you think it's for its job. So how does outsmarting your negative thoughts and wounded parts make you a better leader? So make sure you have the right part to take on tasks and lead. It makes sure you stay positive overall for your team and business. And positive mindsets help you see opportunities all around you. So when you're negative, you're not going to see all these opportunities. You're going to be like blinded. When you're positive, your reticular activating system, which is the part of the brain that lets you hear your name when someone calls it out, is going to see opportunities all around. It helps you stay consistent also, right? It helps you stay consistent because even through failures, you're positive about it. You're like, this isn't a failure, this is a test, right? And then it helps you enjoy the process. So the process of building your business, growing your business, the whole process becomes enjoyable instead of something that you dread, right? And that makes you more efficient. So how do we use that leadership to grow your business? So first thing is we have to make sure the right part is there to take the tasks and lead. Make sure you're staying positive overall for your team, and not just your outer team, your inner team. And these are repeats here, so this is the same as above. But let's get into actually how to use this, right? So we're going to tackle first the story quadrants. So remember self versus self. That's two parts fighting each other. So you find out what each part wants and negotiate between the two, right? You make it a win-win. Win-win. Then we have self versus task, right? So there's a part of you that doesn't want to take on this task. So there's two things to do here. So one is to lower the threshold of action, right? So instead of saying, oh, I'm going to write out this whole email sequence or something like that, right? Instead, you're saying, no, I'm going to sit in front of my computer for at least 10 minutes, and I'm going to have the Google Docs open, and I'm going to write the title of an email and just see what happens. Right? You're lowering that threshold. So instead of overwhelming yourself, oh, I got to do a full sequence of emails. It's like, no. I'm just going to sit down in front of Google Docs, going to write a title of an email. And let's see what happens. Because that lowers the threshold. But the other thing we want to do is make sure the right part or resource is there for that task. Because if you have family man in front of the trying to write emails in front of the computer, family man's going to be like, I want to think about what I'm going to do on date night, or I want to go to my kid's soccer game. Or all of those other things because the family part is in the conscious. No, we want to make sure that the creative writing part, the copywriter, is the one that's in front of that Google Doc, right? So those are the two ways to help with the self versus task. Then we have self versus business. So we got to find out what each part wants and bring them together as a team, right? Because you have all these different parts. They all have different things. We got to figure out what's in common for all of them, which makes up your identity. Then you got to align your business goals with your inner team's goals. Because you could have built a business that either A, you just did it to make money and now you're like, oh, this kind of sucks. Or B, you were a certain personality and identity when you first built a business, and now you've grown and you've changed, but your business hasn't, right? Then there's business versus task. So this is the external side now. So to do that, we have to simplify with the idea method, standardize with SOPs, and systemize with AI or people. And I'll get into what the idea method is, and this S3 method that I mentioned is also next, actually. So once you tackle those story quadrants, that's when you do the S3 method to grow your business. So first you simplify. You have to gain clarity on why, and if you need to, when I say loop open is when you have all these different ideas, right? You create open loops. They're like browser tabs. So we need to gain clarity and why, and if you need to have these even open in the first place, right? Then use the idea method. So idea, I'm going to try to move over here so you have some more room. Idea. So it's IDEA, which is innovate, delegate, eliminate, and automate. So for all those different tasks that we're talking about, those business tasks, first, is there a way to innovate it to make it more easy and efficient? Let's cut off. I'm not even going to finish writing efficient. Next is it a task that we can delegate in some way? Is it a task we even need at all? Can we just eliminate it? Does it actually move the needle anywhere in your business? And if we do choose the delegate path, is there a way that we could possibly even automate it? Right? So that's the idea method. So once you've gone through that process, the idea method, and clarified exactly what it is that you need, then you can get your thoughts and tasks out of your head and into SOPs. SOPs standing for standard operating procedures. I'm not going to finish writing procedures, cut off. So these standard operating procedures are like step-by-step procedures, basically step-by-step ways to complete a task, right? Then once you get those standard operating procedures, then you can delegate those tasks to AI or someone else to buy back all that mental bandwidth that you needed, right? You basically are simplifying exactly what it is that we need to do to move the needle. Then you standardize it to make it a step-by-step process that anybody can follow. Then that's when you systemize. You systemize by either delegating it out to someone else or automating it, and then that's basically your process. And if you do want more help with this, right? Because there's a lot of steps that we talked about. And if you want more help, you could do is click the link in the pinned comment or description where you can reclaim 5+ hours a week in your business, overcome that internal resistance, take guilt-free vacations while scaling, all without your business falling apart.